you, Kathleen. First, I want to say I'm going to break everything. After Eileen's presentation, I think the only thing we have rights to are tax and dying. So don't screw with your taxes. They're going to come after you. I want to thank Kathleen and Roy for inviting me here and to talk a little bit about what keeps me going. And having been here and met a bunch of you, JC, Heather and Jerry, Tristan, you guys have inspired me. It's not often that I come across blind people as independent and as business-minded as this group seems to be. 9 years ago, December, I entered a hospital with what we thought was a sinus infection. And after having an immediate seizure on the floor of the elevator, nurse turned to my friend and said, "This is meningitis." And we were told, no, the doctor said it's a sinus infection. Well, 4 spinal taps later, ouch, and 5 days after I'd been in the hospital, or maybe 3 days, I forget, it was meningitis. And I had already started to lose my eyesight and basically deteriorate and die. I went down to 120 pounds. I'm 6'2", usually about 195. For those of you who had vision before or have had the horrific descriptions of these people, I looked like an Auschwitz victim. An Auschwitz victim. Yes. And it was odd, honestly. I don't have any recollection save 3 or 4 images in my mind during those 3 weeks that I was in a drug-induced morphine haze, or what I like to call a spiritual awakening, or a combination thereof, I don't know. But I remember seeing the little girl that I helped raise in Manhattan on the Lower East Side, Katie, coming in and telling her I don't want her to see me like this. I remember one of my staffers, I used to run a school in the South Bronx for 250 kids, direct service for their families. Kids from all walks of life, Africans, African Americans, Hispanic, variations on every theme, porque yo hablo español también, and a lot of Bangladeshi kids. That's where I was exposed to a fungal spore, a mold, in the school while I was cleaning up 2 rooms that were riddled with mold, and I ingested this stuff, and the only room I didn't do was my office. So I remember seeing one of my staffers come in who was on his way to an interview, which was really cool. I remember seeing my cousin Joseph and then my brother up against the wall crying. And I remember saying to him, "Tim, what are you crying about? It's all going to be good." And those are the only things I remember until January 6th, when I actually came out of that haze and started living a life as a blind person. And of course, I told you the other day, I'm an overachiever, so I'm totally blind. But, no insult to Kathleen, but many of our sighted peers and colleagues and counselors always equate blindness with darkness. And I have to say, my life has never been more full of light until I lost my eyesight.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the truth. I've never seen more clearly about a lot of things in my life. That doesn't mean I don't get frustrated and want to hit people with a baseball bat who are stupid. But I was in the hospital learning how to walk again, how to stand up. It took me quite a bit of time because I had lost so much weight. I hadn't eaten. And at some point, the doctor comes in, flashes a light in my eye, and says, "Okay." And I'm like, "Well, what's the diagnosis?" "Well, I'll tell your doctor." "I'm so sorry, but aren't you a doctor?" "Well, yes, I am, but I have to tell your doctor." I said, "Well, let me get this straight. I'm paying my doctor. My doctor's paying you. Please think, blind. I'm good to go. Tell me. 90% chance you will never see again. 10% chance you will. Well, during that week or 3 weeks that I was in that haze, I had a spiritual conversation or an awakening of sorts. I knew I was going to be blind when I woke up, oddly enough. My mother to this day was there when my sensibilities started coming back and I really started to make complete sense as opposed to questionable sense. And she remembers me saying, "Mom, I'm blind," and she's just rubbing my arm, and I remember this. She's like, "Yeah, no, you'll be okay." And I said, "No, but Mom, I'm blind." "But you'll be okay." And I'm like, "Oh, Mom, let me say this one more time. I'm blind." And she's, "Yes, you are." And she recalled that I never screamed. You would think those of us who either lost our eyesight gradually or lost our eyesight after having it, you'd wake up to a room gone dark, no lights. You would have yelled a few expletives and saying, "What?" But I was calm, cool, collected. Until that lady told me I wasn't going to be able to see again, because that's also something I was told was going to happen. And I I busted a gasket when I got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich instead of the Caesar salad I was looking forward to. And I actually was... I'm not proud of this, but in retrospect, I grew from it. I took the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, threw it across the room, and told this woman, "If you want peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you eat the effing thing." And my father walked in at that time with my nieces and my nephews, my sister, my brother, and my mom, and was watching me just go out of control. And he's like, "Hey, what's going on here? You can't talk like that." And I said, "You can't tell me what to do anymore. You're not blind. So you can just take that stuff and go out the door with it." Well, if you know my dad, that didn't go over too well. And he cleared the room and told my mother and my family, I'm talking to him alone, everybody out. And he said, "Look, it really sucks to be you right now." He says, "If I could trade with you, I would. And if you don't think it's killing me to not be able to do that for you, you're crazy." He says, "But I didn't raise anybody to be a quitter. I didn't raise an angry person. You've been one of the most happiest people since the day you were born. You've got students who are looking up to you. You've got your father and your mother. You've got your brother, your sister, your nieces, your nephews. You're a teacher and a principal. You expect 100% from your kids and you always get it. Now you're going to have to show them what it really looks like. So, beat a pillow, break a glass, curse all you want, but ain't nobody coming in to this room till you get your head out of your ass." Now, that really is as much as it took. And most people would think, "Oh, how unsympathetic. Oh my God, what a mean dad." But when I was talking with JC at lunch yesterday, you have parents who want you to succeed and they don't coddle you. And I'm proud to say that at 42, my father didn't do that, and he never had done it before. So he reminded me of who I was and who I was raised to be. And I immediately said, "You're right. Okay." Maybe not right away, maybe a day or two later, but... and then I set my life to becoming a successful blind person. But I didn't know what that was. I didn't know many successful blind people outside of our standard, stereotypical Helen Keller, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder. I'm not a woman. Last time I checked, I wasn't black. I can sing, but not as good as those two. So, I tried going back to school, i.e. going back to work in a school, and was told plainly, "We don't hire blind people, you need to see to teach." And I knew that sounded wrong, but I knew I didn't know enough to tell this man what I really thought, so I walked out and said, "I'll be back." And I started my blind spot. I also found a lot of inspiration out of the necessity to reestablish my life. Like many of you, I was a business owner. I am a business owner. I owned restaurants in New York City. I ran a $300 million business for Jones New York, a women's apparel company. I ran a $2 million nonprofit. in the South Bronx that was a pre-K and after-school program. So my identity and who I was wrapped up in everything entrepreneurial. And the one thing that I found was missing as I started putting things back together, created my own business called My Blind Spot, or a nonprofit. I got to be careful about calling it my business, because it really is a nonprofit, and I don't want to fall prey to founder syndrome, where it takes on my personality and it becomes my business and it dies after I do, like so many organizations that are associated with one personality or another. But I'm here, and I draw inspiration from the challenges in my life, and I have come to really believe that access to the right tools promotes ability and restores infinite possibilities. And that's a universal truth. You don't have to be sighted to need tools to be able-bodied, to create possibilities. And you certainly shouldn't have to be blind to fight for them. So what we've set out to do at My Blind Spot, and what I'm committed to the rest of my life, is to investigate where there are access denial issues, whether they're virtual or physical. I don't know if many of you know me from last year, actually, the 13th. A year ago this week, I was unceremoniously removed from a U.S. Airways flight because my dog and I were a threat to national security. The dog, yeah. We were on the tarmac for, I'll just give you the snippet out, on the tarmac for an hour and 40 minutes. The lady sat me in a seat where I didn't have a seat in front of me to stow my dog. Yeah, nobody stows my dog. He's a living, breathing thing. You secure him safely. Didn't have a seat. Lady next to me let me borrow her seat to stuff the dog's hindquarters in. Came out 3 times. She was just unrelenting. Turned the plane around, tried to remove me, and 35 people stood up and said, "No way."
Yes.
This man did not do anything wrong. They came off that plane. They stopped the flight. They said, either the blind guy goes with us or we stay here, and when we get on that plane with him, she can't be on it. So, and it's instances like that I now look for in every day that I live my life. What was quickly the worst day of my life. I'm 50 now, and I've never been denied access. I've got people refusing to let me into buildings because they think my dog is a pet. I'm like, what is all this metal on him? He's not a Louis Vuitton handbag. I get denied access on planes, or argue that I have to have that. I get taxis going by me. I don't know if anybody out there who's got guide dogs in New York City. They go right by me, and I hear people saying, "They went right by that blind guy." And I just want to scream. But now I'm an ambassador, but I'm not a diplomat. I can't be diplomatic. So, what happened that day when those 30, I was walking across that tarmac going off, and that there were 8 empty seats on that plane that woman could have actually moved me to, or moved one person to give me and my dog the whole row. She was intentionally blind, and that's worse than being actual blind. People who are intentionally blind, and I was one of those people. I walked in New York City. I walked up and down my street, moving my car every day, saying hi to other people on the street who were moving their cars. I never knew their name, but I was kind enough to say, "Hey, how are you?" Never once taken time to get know their names, know their lives. The minute they found out that I was dying and I lost my eyesight, everybody came out. Patty and John, they had a cat named Morris, go figure, he was orange. And they had a python named Monty, go figure. Tony, and I had, next door was me, Peter was a Baptist minister. I didn't know Peter was a minister. I didn't know he had a ministry over in Tompkins Square Park. That was my first time in church as an adult, outside of funerals or baptisms. And my dog's name is Doxology. He did the doxology to him in Christian churches, and the minute the doxology was done, this one hops up on my shoulders, right paw, left paw, licks me twice and barks twice, and Pete goes, "That's right, brothers, even the dog knows when to say amen." And, you know, I draw inspiration from this flea-bitten hound. If it wasn't for him, I would not have been able to do anything that I've been doing today, traveling around the country. We travel no less than 12 times a year, probably 15, working with organizations to discuss accessibility rights. And I owe him so much, and I never would have thought I would owe an animal anything. But I become independent because of him. And, you know, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of us can attest to who are blind, that a lot of people don't perceive our ability. I like to say, don't diss my ability. All right? You know, everybody's disabled. I mean, I love when we talk about, oh, my computer's been disabled, or the program's disabled. I'm disabled now, so what the hell does that mean? It takes on a whole new meaning. And I don't like the word. It's a historically handed down terminology that we're stuck with. But I like to look at ability. And I see in this room today the same feeling I got that day when those 35 people took what was the second worst day of my life, second only to the day I found out I was going to be blind the rest of my life, which turned around as well, turned out to be one of the most wonderful, uplifting experiences I ever had because of humanity. 35 people stopped and took notice that something was wrong. And thank God they got off with me, because my mother even said, "What did you really say to that woman?" I didn't say anything. I really was so polite and so direct. But in this room, for the first time, and I've been to a few conferences, blind-centric conferences, national conferences, state conferences, and each one gives me a different feeling, but to be amongst business owners, again, it inspires me, and it gives me the strength to keep doing what I'm doing. And that's to make sure that we are respected, that we are invited to the table to discuss how we need to be treated, rather than having it be condescendingly put upon us. But it's up to us to do that. We need to be very proactive. You know, I was here talking about QuickBooks. Intuit won't like this, but I don't care. Intuit intentionally avoided accessibility out of fear. Everything's out of fear, I think. Fear of disrupting their consumer base, fear of what blindness is, fear that the community we represent doesn't have a viable return on the investment. Over the past 10, 20 years, they slammed the doors about accessibility in the face of Eric Damery and Glenn Gordon, the powers behind Freedom Scientific. Doug and Dan Geist at GW Micro, Stephen Clark, who you all met, Steve Clark. I always call him Stephen, he hates that. And some people who work for me, and many people who have tested our product. There's a way that we need to find collectively a voice that is heard. And I feel that's why I've been called to blindness. I really feel somehow, some way, without understanding at all why, people are willing to listen to me. And I need to listen to you all. I want to make sure that if there are programs out there that you need to use to ensure the success of your businesses outside of QuickBooks, things that complement the independence and the ability to manage your finances.
TurboTax.
TurboTax will be one of those things we're discussing. It's up there. So is Quicken, because not everybody's going to go to work, but we all do have finances we have to manage. Again, death and taxes. So I'd like to hear back from people. I'd love to have people really give QuickBooks a look. Again, I'm going to say I'd like to have you, and I'm not pimping QuickBooks, I'm promoting independence. And it's one of the most widely used programs out there, which is why I attacked it. And there were other conversations I was having with John Myrne outside of the website stuff that he needs to do about looking at phone systems. I'm actually having conversations with colleagues of mine who are court stenographers. I don't think anybody's really sat down and had a real think tank brainstorming session with the types of positions that our community can hold that really would take a simple programmatic coding to fix. Because once you have a disabled person or people like us working for your company, we're probably some of the best people to have work for you. We're appreciative. We value the time to work, because for so many years we were told we were never going to be able to do it. But it takes us, it really takes a lot of personal conviction and commitment and a collective voice, a joining of forces. The power in this room has to do with all of you together, not just one voice. So, I really must say thank you, because I really needed my batteries re-energized. I have been pushing boulders up some major hills lately, and came here not knowing what to expect, and meeting so many of you and hearing your commitments to your own businesses really gives me what I need to keep doing what I do best, and that is opening doors for us and other people in our community. So thank you very much for having me today. I appreciate your time, and God bless.